Greetings, everybody. This is Christopher Messina coming at you, as ever, from the Messy Time Studios in the beaches of the last free state in America, Florida. Joining me today virtually from northeast of Pennsylvania is Tom Shepstone, a writer I've come to follow and respect greatly on Substack, who is a research planning consultant in Pennsylvania. Tom, thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
Oh, it's great. I admire your work and happy to join you.
Excellent, excellent. You join a roster of fantastic guests. If I were on my own, this would be insanely boring. So I want to dive right in. I'll give you my quick intro, and then you please take it. Um, I've been involved analytically and looking at what I have come, without bias, to refer to as the climate hysteria apocalyptic church. And you yourself have done a lot of work in this space. Maybe it would be best for you to give a little intro, and then we'll see where we go.
Yeah. Well, I'm a farm boy from northeastern Pennsylvania, and many years ago, looking back, I guess a half a century now, I took an interest in land use planning and things of that nature. And I've developed a consulting business that I've had for about 45 years, where I work with municipalities, counties, some states occasionally on a few things, and also with gas companies and people such as that. My work generally revolves around traditional land use planning, zoning, those kinds of things. But I got involved in the natural gas through the fact that I own property, and my family owns a couple hundred acres of property in northeastern Pennsylvania. And we were suddenly confronted with natural gas in about 2007 when Chesapeake Energy showed up on the door with the interest in leasing all the land in our county, basically everything. And at first, nobody paid much attention because the gas companies and oil companies had every decade or so come around and signed up for $1 an acre, $2 an acre, $5. My dad did it 2 or 3 times, and it was just like found money for him.
And for
So
those who don't know, that is they're picking an annual rate at which they're going to compensate you for the right to drill.
it's just a one-time bonus fee. That's all, just a one-time bonus. It didn't amount to much at all. So
Right.
my dad would get a couple $100 or maybe $1,000 or something, and like I said, it's found money.
Right.
So in 2007, suddenly it went. It started off at like I think 25, and it went to 75, and then 250, and next thing you know, it's 1,000, and it finally ended up at about $2,500 an acre. And
Nice.
so I became serious real quick. I initially didn't want to get involved, let my brothers handle it. But as I got going further, I saw one of the local groups that was trying to negotiate leases was not handling the opposition properly, in my view. The opposition was essentially what I call the Hudson Valley type person, out, basically moved out of New York and it's got a wealthy place up in the Hudson Valley someplace, and they've moved into our area. We're in the Delaware Valley, but same type of people.
Right.
And we had enough of them. They started making noise against it, and that was when Gasland came out. And I thought my neighbors were not really handling it the best way. They were too accommodating and trying to convince the fractivists that this was okay, and I knew.
Gasland was one of the dumbest pieces of propaganda
Oh,
I've ever
terrible.
seen.
And he lives in the same township I grew up in, by the way. He has a house there.
Does,
So
does he dodge bar fights when he goes downtown on a weekend?
he's such he's don't even get me going. I'll say something libelous. I
Sorry,
don't want to do
we'll go way off topic. So hard to stay constrained when dealing with these lunatics.
Yeah, but
Carry on.
anyway, what happened was that they just didn't understand. And as a land use consultant, working with municipalities and people like that, and representing some developers from time to time, I just knew what the NIMBY mindset was. And you don't convince them. You just
No,
don't.
never.
You gotta beat them. You gotta beat them. That's it. You know,
No, ever. And
you
that's
know.
good, clear thinking because too many people think, well, if we just have a rational discussion, and I
Oh
tell
yeah,
people constantly, you're
yeah,
having a statistical argument with liberal arts majors who are afraid of math. Don't bother.
exactly. Don't even try. You just got to beat them. So that's one of my favorite lines. So the to make that story short, then what happened was I started writing stuff and sharing it with people, And as I was doing my regular consulting business, and it came to the attention of a group called Energy in Depth,
Mhm.
and they work for the Independent Oil and Gas Association of America. And so I worked with them for about 3 years. They said, "Hey, why don't you help us, do some pushback?" And I loved that. Did that for about 3 years, then went off on my own, and I've been doing it ever since. I did have a blog called naturalgasnow.org, but I wanted to go a little broader, and I like the Substack format. So I've kind of just put the naturalgasnow.org on the side, and I'm doing energy security and freedom on
Yeah.
Substack. And it gives me the freedom to get into the whole climate scam as I see it, as well as free speech issues. I know that's big with you too. We
And,
have very
a quick shout out to Substack for pushing back. The censor left
yes,
come for them
yes,
too, under the guise of we tried really, 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 really hard, and after 9,500 searches, we found one guy with
yeah,
three readers who's a modern day Nazi. Therefore, we
yeah,
should apply
yeah.
censorship to this the way we did to Twitter.
Yeah, no, that was great, and that's exactly what you have to do in every situation. You just got to come back and go at them, and so that's what I enjoy doing. I'm 73 or 72, almost 73 years old, and I just love expressing my opinion at this point because I don't really care what people think,
There
So
you go. That's it. God bless guys who are uncancelable. I had
yeah,
Brett Stevens, an old friend of mine, and Pulitzer Prize winning editorialist for both for the Wall Street Journal, earlier
yeah,
the Jerusalem Post, then now the New York
right,
Times, which is funny. And he on the show said, I find it appalling that the writers in this country used to be the ones that pushed the envelope, used to be the ones
yeah, yeah,
like now I'm finding out that a mining executive speaks his
yeah,
mind because he can't be canceled. You can't
yeah,
fire me. I'm in mining. You kidding me? If I express skepticism about these lunatics that want to shut us down because of the climate,
yeah. By
it's
the
not.
way, I love your project. After going on your site and so on, I checked out Tambourines, and
Oh,
it's fantastic.
greatest thing ever.
And, I hope Greenland breaks free of Denmark, and maybe Mr. Trump will get elected, and he'll say, "Hey, we want to make a deal with you."
One of the
I
funniest
love
things
it.
ever. That is, I tell people constantly, like, remember when Trump offered to buy Greenland, you're welcome. Because he made that offer right after we were in the White House explaining the value of our mine. National
Oh,
security, and the Greenlanders
yeah,
are hilarious. Like, this was the fifth president that they had this discussion with, going back to 1850. And as the current ambassador to the U.S. says to me all the time, he said, "Remember, Greenland is open for business, but we're not for sale."
yeah.
But
Well, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're great bunch of folks, beautiful
Well,
country. But anyway,
the interesting part is that, of course, it's very rural, and it's rural America. I grew up, like I said, as a farm boy. So to me, that's where you find the common sense and wisdom is in rural areas. Cities are very important to our civilization, but
yep.
they are also, as Jefferson, I can't remember the exact words Jefferson used, but they weren't kind, about cities. And of course he visited cities too. But that you don't find a lot of wisdom there because people are too close together. They they rely on government for more than they should because they're so close together.
Yep.
And of course, living in a urban environment, they know nothing about food and energy. I mean, they just,
Zero. They think it comes wrapped in plastic in a
oh
store.
yeah, it's now, again, I'm ignorant of a lot of city life too, so I admit that. That's
It's
fine.
okay.
But I think the wisdom that our country needs really comes from rural America and rural countries, frankly, like Greenland's a good example. Those are people that realize the benefits of Western civilization and development and want to achieve those. And so they're going to be very accommodating to your project as a result. And that's what you get in a rural area. It's what happened when the Marcellus Shale came to our area.
Oh,
Uh,
sure. People realized what a boon this was going to be.
yeah,
New
yeah,
York still bans fracking. That drives me insane. I'm a native New Yorker. And right
yeah,
across the border, you got people living on welfare on hard scrabble farms that are not yielding much since 1776.
right.
And then you pop over to Pennsylvania, and everyone's got a new Ford F-150, a new house. They're spending their winters in Florida. It's
That's
all due to the Marcellus.
that's Susquehanna County. My county is Wayne County. We don't have drilling because we're in the Delaware River Basin Commission, but that's a discussion for another day.
Yeah.
But Susquehanna is in the Susquehanna River Basin Commission area,
Yeah.
and it is allowed there. And ironically, um, that River Basin Commission, which is governed by the same majority of people that governs the Delaware one, has done extensive water studies over many years, stream water quality studies, and they've put right in their annual report or their water studies annually. They put in that the fracking's had no detrimental negative effect on stream quality, and yet today in my land use planning role and with that hat on, I get a comment from somebody who lives here in this county about a document I wrote, a planning document, saying, well, it's just not true that the stream quality that the stream water quality is not gone downhill. It's just not true. But that's what you deal with. You have to fight back at that at all times.
Yeah.
So
What to you is the biggest thing to tell people, right? Because for your average citizen
yeah,
who's generally concerned about the environment, about economic growth, and
right.
sense of the balance, right?
Right.
What is it you point to most effectively that shows them that all this hullabaloo? I mean, we can give all the speeches we want about John Kerry and all these other
Yeah,
idiots flying private to Dubai to sit in air conditioned, oil driven air conditioning in the Emirates, talking about how evil carbon is and how the Dutch shouldn't be allowed to grow cows anymore. How do you get it home to folks that all this screaming and yelling is manufactured hysteria?
I think and again, I don't want to get too political, but I realize you are too. So I,
Well, but
I
it really is. I mean, I have to call
yeah,
it out
it is political.
because it's
Yeah,
it's nonsense. When you look at the real data, you put up
yeah,
something great today
right,
about what 28 different, someone else had done empirical research on like 28 or 36 climate models going back 30 years.
right,
Their predictions and
right.
then the reality, they were all wrong, like
Yeah, I
wildly
had that
wrong.
I had that post up this morning, and I think that's helpful. But to me, what we really must do, and we touched on this already, is we've got to show what the Trump election in 2016 showed us, and that is that we have corruption at the highest levels of our government, our academia, and so on. Western civilization is dying on the vine because of corruption.
Yes.
And if you had asked me, 10 years ago, what I thought about the JFK assassination, I would say the Warren Commission was correct, and all this other stuff is just silly arguments and conspiracy theories. And I have come to the conclusion that I was wrong, and I would have told you the FBI, despite J. Edgar and his dresses and all that stuff, was was a decent organization. It had some ups and downs like all entities, but overall it was a trustworthy institution. I would
Yeah.
have said the same, frankly, even about the CIA. Now I think these are some of the most evil people on the planet. I mean,
Oh, it's terrible. It really
yeah,
is. It's a real shame. And
it's
I'm not going to generically say you should never let a transvestite run a major investigative organization, but it's a one of one, and he was horrible.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
no,
But
it is terrible. And the
but
very
get
fact that most people still don't know
right.
that Bobby Kennedy was assassinated during a presidential election, and that then kicked off the tradition of every presidential candidate of any real viability immediately getting Secret Service protection. And the Biden administration has do not denied it to Bobby Kennedy Jr. Like the
It's incredible.
irony is palpable. It's insanity. And
Total.
you know who does
Total.
have Secret Service protection? Anthony Fauci, who's retired, and in theory, we don't pay for anymore.
He should be in a orange jumpsuit. We know that.
Beyond that, oh,
Yeah.
choir, please tell me more. The choir wants to hear the preaching. But
But
we're gonna
anyway,
stay off Fauci. We're gonna stay off Fauci as much as it's hard to do. Um, but how do we reverse this at a practical level, right?
well,
Like,
I,
how
I
do we reverse this? Because, and I get it, like I have rational conversations with otherwise very intelligent people. The political class, in my opinion, depends upon everything they do being both simultaneously really complicated and really boring. And
yeah,
they do it deliberately so people tune out.
yeah.
And
But
so
my
it
point,
sounds good. Wow, yeah, oh God, I hear emissions are bad. And I hear, wow, we should limit that. And all of a sudden, beef is $48 a pound, and you're not allowed to drive more than 20 miles.
well, the answer in my view is to go on, and it's always the answer really, is to go on the offense. And the offense is, to get back to my point about the Kennedy assassination and so on, is that we have to tell people, we have to keep emphasizing over and over and over, it's not about the environment, it's not about the ideologies, it's all about power and money.
Yep.
and 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 the and especially money, and the power to make more money. So, and I'm not against, I hope you make a fortune with your project up there. So I'm not against that at all. But what we're seeing today is corporatism, not capitalism, and
Right.
and therefore we need to keep educating people. One of my favorite blogs that I follow religiously, a great friend of mine does it. He's constantly attacking, and properly so, the ideology. And then whenever I have an opportunity, I try to insert, when I'm quoting him or something, I insert, but it's not the ideology. It's the people funding the ideology. And you
Yeah.
got to expose them. To me, that's the key to the whole thing. And I think the World Economic Forum has taken some hits, that I think they're significantly weakened
Well, I
from a
hope
couple of
so.
years ago.
What I found
Yeah,
simultaneously hilarious about the World Economic Forum is I was invited once and I couldn't go. And a lot of
yeah,
people no go, right? So I try to calm people down, like it's not this evil cabal. We're going to control the world, right? They've
yeah,
got left-leaning ideas. They're much more
yeah,
collectivist than individualist, right? And that becomes an echo chamber, and everyone
right,
sounds really smart to each other. Whereas normal people who are like, I believe in individual rights and responsibilities, and I believe the
right.
free market is better, either get invited and don't go, go once and are like, I don't need to hear this crap. So it becomes this self-selecting entity.
Yeah,
And then a few years ago, it began to be spoken about, especially because they had so much to do with the WHO and with the insane
right,
Wuhan pandemic crap.
right.
So the good news is they're fairly ineffectual, and there are a lot of people like to talk to each other.
That's
Um,
that's right.
that's fine, right? And but to the extent that ideas matter, they do push a lot of ideas to a lot of people with power in countries around the
Right.
world, and that
But I
has
think they become a caricature of themselves. Don't you think so?
they do, and that but that's
Yeah.
true of almost anything, right? So I try to be a little balanced whenever. So whenever someone's going, and I've butted up against this, people I do respect. G. Gordon Liddy said it beautifully years ago that two people can keep a secret if one of them is dead,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
everyone from 9/11 truthers to birthers to all these people, no one's that clever. This is the same government that can't fix potholes and can't run the DMV,
Yeah,
but they
yeah.
can run long-term, multi-decade scams on you. No, they can't. It's not that good.
No, they're not that good. They're not that good. I agree with you
It's
100%.
near-term greed. I get this legislation passed that benefits my company in this area, and I get free rents for a while.
Hmm.
That's what corruption is. That's what, it's
Yeah,
helpful to bring that out to people because a lot of people watch movies and you'd almost love to believe the CIA remotely as capable as they're
yeah,
made out to be. That'd be great. We'd be a lot safer.
yeah, yeah. No, I understand what you're saying, and I think there's an awful lot of truth to it. But I do think they're much more corrupt than I ever believed.
Oh yeah. Oh, for
You know,
sure. Well,
and
it's hard to resist, right? I mean, that's a
yeah,
friend
you got
of
to
mine put it
resist. That's it.
friend
That's
of mine
it.
put it beautifully, and it's incrementalism, right? I don't want to. As a taxpayer, I don't want to see money thrown at companies, right? As someone building a critical business that makes material that is very much in demand of the American military, would I be averse to an investment from the DOE or Department of Defense? No. But who wouldn't, right? And
Yeah,
when
right.
Elon Musk, luckily, the best thing ever happened to Elon was Barack Obama being in the White House. Because absent that transfer of wealth that most people still don't know about,
Yeah, right.
every banker trader in Hollywood twit that bought a Tesla during Obama's years got an $8,000
I
check
know.
from working class Americans to buy that car.
I used
Absent that, it would be a very different world.
Yeah, I don't know what part of upstate New York you're from, but of course in Buffalo, he had Solar City too, which is another fiasco,
Oh, insane
a terrible
fiasco.
fiasco. but
I'm one
he,
of those horrible downstaters. I came from the city, so I'm a horrible
oh,
person.
okay.
I live in Florida now, so
All
I'm
right.
hopefully
So
free of pain.
I take back all the nasty things I said about city people.
It's
So,
okay. I get it. There are pluses and minuses. I totally get it. I do.
but
I have found
yeah,
urbanites in America to be particularly hilarious. I mean, it was a family member. It doesn't really matter, but it was like a family event, and we're sitting there. I'll never forget eating a big like fried chicken and a big deli sandwich, and the woman who's about to berate me is having the same meal. Like I will take criticism of hunting from a vegan. I'll at least hear it, right?
yeah, yeah, right.
I mentioned that I was on the way to go deer hunting in Texas the next weekend, and this woman said to me, "Well, I hope you shoot each other with your bullets."
Oh,
I looked at her, I was like, "Excuse me?" Well, I think hunting's evil. And I'm looking, I'm like, "You're eating meat.
yeah, right.
That meat lived its life in a cage and then died. The
Yeah,
deer I'm going to go get, hopefully, has been free his whole life. And then it's going to be over. Like, you want me to get killed going hunting? And like, but to a New Yorker of a certain kind, that sentence made perfect sense.
yeah, I know. And there's an awful lot of that. And I had a very lefty New Yorker. I think occasionally comes up this way for vacationing or whatever. And he used to follow my website. I think he stopped, but and he
Mm,
would, he would kind of troll me a little bit,
sure.
and I would troll him a little bit. So he worked with Big Pharma, by the way, which was funny. But
Even better. You want to
yeah,
talk about
yeah, I know,
poisoning the people.
I know.
How dare
I
you hunt? I'm gonna get you addicted to a drug you take for the rest of
right,
your
right,
life
and I
because of
did.
cholesterol.
And I did do a little bit of that with him, but that was pre-COVID. Now, if he was back, I would be mercilessly attacking him on COVID. But anyway, the but he made the argument multiple times to me. Oh well, I am living what I preach because I pay a little extra for my energy in order to get certified, renewable
Oh,
energy. And you know what a scam that is. And
oh,
I think all your readers and followers viewers are aware as well. That is a total scam.
oh, it's beyond a scam. I had this great moment when they first started this crap. I was flying. I had to go back and forth from London and New York. I flew
Yeah.
Virgin a lot because it was great airline, very comfortable.
Yeah, sure.
And I remember I was at the gate, or I was checking bags, but then I stopped doing it. But anyway, I was checking bags. I was at the terminal in JFK, and the woman said, "Would you like to pay whatever it was, another $89 to offset your carbon footprint?" I looked at her and said, "Excuse me?" She said, "Would you like to pay?" I heard you the first time. I said, "Is there another thing where
Oh,
you refund me $89 and mid-flight you say, 'Hey, the asshole in 3B is double footprinting it today,' and then people can come by and shake their. Do you have that deal? Can I take that deal?"
yeah.
And she just looked at me startled. I was like, "Never mind. Like this is where I get arrested by
Yeah,
TSA."
right. Right.
So,
I
just
know
walked
it's
away. But
it
what a
is hilarious. But
scam!
again, I think you and people like us, we just need to keep hammering away on the corruption to answer your root question. We need to keep hammering away at it. And your point is well taken that if we do that, it only takes, this is one of my other things I've learned from personal experience. Um, Several times in my life, where I took, and I think you're this kind of guy too, where you take a position that's not the consensus position.
Oh,
And
how dare I
uh,
look at empirical data? Silly me.
yeah, I remember one time I was involved with a bridge here in town. I was opposed to it, and everybody had worked hard to get the bridge, but it was going to be combined with one-way traffic. It was going to be a disaster in my view. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. The point is, everybody was afraid to say to ask for changes in the design. So we didn't have the one way. We could have the bridge, but not the one way.
Right.
And because we got the funding lined up, we can't jeopardize that. That's terrible. So I went to a meeting at the PennDOT regional headquarters, and I had with me one of the borough councilmen, and it was he and I against about 18 or 19 people. And we were able to turn that around. We didn't win in the end, and I'll tell you why, but we turned that around at that meeting to the point that they said, well, I guess we'll have to have another public meeting.
There you go.
Unfortunately, one of my good friends who was on the other side, he he made sure the borough scheduled the public hearing when he knew I was going to be out of town and bragged to me afterwards.
Of course.
So,
Hey, fair play,
so,
right? That's
so I lose a lot of battles too, but as I'm sure you do, but
oh
the
yeah.
but one person can have an enormous influence if they're willing to speak out. That's all it takes.
And what's so great about that is I got three kids and I read to them no matter what books they wanted to read when they were younger at nighttime. I always worked into the rotation The Emperor's New Clothes, right?
Oh yes, yeah,
Repeatedly, repeatedly, because I always wanted them to
yes.
the old great Groucho Marx line, whom do you believe, me or your damn lying eyes, right? I want you to believe your damn lying eyes
Well, the
because
emperor, the emperor's
they are
quote.
everyone with an agenda is going to push on you.
Yep.
Um, and I'm actually this discussion is going to be a bit of a litmus test because I guarantee you, if I titled it anything like about what we're talking about, what my favorite thing they do on YouTube is they put the blue context box. I
Oh
love
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
love that, right? So it would be climate change, which is caused by man, and anyone who says otherwise is an evil prick we're going to throw in jail once Biden's reelected, right? Well, that's not quite what they say, but close.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm gonna see if I title it, then someone has to flag it, right? So we'll see. I'm gonna title it something benign, like municipal planning, right? Whatever. We'll see
Yeah,
where
yeah,
we go.
yeah.
But I guarantee you, at some point, someone's gonna complain to YouTube that we're climate deniers, and
Yeah.
then we're gonna have our discussion tagged.
Well, there's a great trial going on in Washington right now, as I'm sure you're aware.
Oh, awesome.
It
Tell,
is awesome.
tell the people because they might not even know the background. I love this. I
Well,
tangle with
yeah,
Michael
well,
myself, but go ahead.
Michael Mann, the inventor of the hockey stick graph, which has been widely dispelled at this point by
Yep.
people who actually do believe in global warming, including as well. Um, and he took offense to a couple of articles that were written in 2012 comparing my alma mater, Penn State's behavior with respect to Jerry Sandusky
Oh yeah. Oh,
to
so
the
gross.
way they treated Michael Mann. They essentially whitewashed both situations initially,
Yep.
and the president of Penn State eventually went to jail for that,
Wow.
and for the first one for Sandusky. And so the two articles said, "Look, this is how Penn State operates, and it's wrong." And Michael Mann didn't do us justice in his research or the way he presented it, and it was a fraud. So Mann, of course, sued. Um, he didn't sue everybody who said that. He only sued Mark Stein and Rand Simborg, I think his name is. And
Weren't
that
there emails between them and other client scientists
yes,
in
there
the
was.
UK
It's
burying data?
yeah, it was part of Climategate was drawn into it, but the sad part about it was it took 12 years. So, and what happened? I think it was yesterday or the day before. It was revealed that Mann has not spent a dime, not a dime, on his lawsuit.
Gotta
Not a
wonder who's paying for
somebody
that.
somebody is paying for that. Some
Yep.
special interest. It could be the lawyers, but I don't think lawyers typically go 12 years on the come. I
No,
don't think
someone's cutting that check.
somebody's doing it.
Yep.
So, and Mark Stein is one of my heroes. He's kind of an acerbic writer and has a beautiful blog called Stein Online, and
Yep.
it's a long story. But anyway, he's a brilliant commentator. And so the trial's going on in Washington right now after 12 years. And of course, he's being essentially bankrupted by the whole thing, while Mann is getting away without spending a dime. And but yet I think Stein is doing pretty darn well. He exposed several things already, and it's all about, can you speak out against a supposed scientist? And he is a scientist. I'll say he
Yeah, of
is.
course he is.
So can you speak out against a scientist and say you think he's wrong?
Right.
And
Yeah.
and that's what it's really about. And of course, Mann's position is no, you can't. I'm right, and that's it. And you so this is a great free speech battle.
That was
It's
wonderful.
Yeah, and it's a great battle over the whole thing with climate and what's behind it, which is essentially his hockey stick was based on a single tree on a Canadian peninsula.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is representative of the world. Well,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
started this podcast because of, and I'm sorry, you might want to hold your ears. No matter how anybody writes this or says it, all I hear is, "I found the science. found the fans. That chant
Yeah, yeah,
from the early Wuhan
yeah,
nonsense drove like
yeah,
was sandpaper on my soul,
yeah,
and
yeah.
always came from innumerate liberal arts majors. And I follow the science meant I'm a Democrat who hates orange man bad. That's what it
Mm.
meant,
Yep,
and
yep.
it drove me nuts. And eventually, we
I
said that
agree.
a friend of mine in Hollywood, who's a producer, called me and said, "Christopher, I love it when you call and tell me how stupid everyone is. Maybe we should tell someone else." And that was how we began the podcast.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Well, what I like about you, you got a great sense of humor and you can laugh and I think that's part of the secret here. We have to be, and I need to work on that at times, but
They're infuriating, and
yeah,
and most of the time is I think people have fallen into this horrible trap just
yeah,
across the board because um, outrage pays the bills. It pays for
yeah,
clicks. The old,
yeah,
there's nothing new in the newspaper business. If it bleeds, it leads. Mencken
yeah,
said that, right?
yeah,
There's nothing
yeah,
new
yeah,
about rubbernecking at tragedy, but the speed with which social media delivers sound bites and I remember I laughed because I was the MTV generation, right? And supposedly we were going to be complete idiots because our attention span had shrunk to 3.5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes if it was a Michael Jackson video.
yeah.
That was it. I mean, you look at TikTok now, my kids will absorb stuff in 8 seconds, and if it's like 10,
Right.
they're bored. So
That's
I'm
right.
not too worried about humanity adapting to new forms of information flow. But I do think it has increased the ability for people to segment into their own echo chambers. If you're talking to someone personally,
Mhm.
unless you want to be a complete sociopath that pisses everybody off in your immediate vicinity, you at least temper your
Right.
how you say things to people. Whereas if you're
Right.
online hiding behind an anonymous, emoji,
Yeah.
you can be as vituperative as you like because there's no real um, immediate negative feedback to that. Hopefully,
Yeah.
people will adapt. Hopefully, people will begin to realize they're being manipulated. And if someone says something like, "I love Tony Heller's website. He's had this thing
Yeah.
up," and what I
Right.
love what Tony does is he takes it. He writes about climate science. He goes directly to whenever the UN will say something or the IPCC or whoever there was, and they'll issue a headline that, of course, every media talking head grabs and repeats. Like yesterday was the hottest day on record,
Yeah.
or a
So
year on record, right? And then he goes and he looks at their own data,
yeah.
which
Yeah.
does not say that. That's the
Yeah.
best part. Is that if everyone just took the time, which they can't in an attention-starved world, and you had a life to lead, but if anyone remotely fluent with statistics would read the IPCC reports about climate, they would realize that the
Yeah.
headline that the New York Times gives you is usually directly opposite to
That's
what
correct.
the report says.
I agree 100%. And I think if we put our optimistic hats on for a minute, there are some great things happening. I mean, look at what we're doing. We're
Yeah,
sitting
exactly.
and we're going to get some. We've got some followers, each of us, and a lot of people are going to hear it and they're going to be influenced by it. And
I hope they go do their own research. Don't listen to me.
yeah,
Anybody should listen to Michael Mann.
yeah, and there was a beautiful program on. I don't know if you will watch Glenn Greenwald at all, his videos, but he's a
Sometimes.
he's a lefty by nature, and he did have a news media organization called Intercept, which he founded, and then that turned crazy, and he left and went on his own. And he has a great, it's on Rumble, Glenn Greenwald, and he takes positions on things that you and I wouldn't agree with at all. He's kind of sympathetic to the whole Hamas thing, which I find abhorrent. But
Terrifying.
but he's so good on some other things. He had a show on either today or yesterday, and it was like an hour and a quarter about what's happening with the media. And he gave all the statistics about the major media are just in a state of absolute collapse.
Yep.
And yet all this other stuff is being born, and that's what's beautiful about Substack or WordPress, any of those things. But
Oh, it
Substack, in
is great.
particular, yeah. And we are, we've got all kinds of journalism going on out there, and it's gradually replacing the old mainstream people who were trying to deliver a special interest message. And
That is the greatest part. And
yeah,
it's the balance between there is something to be said for editorial integrity, right? Nothing's perfect, right?
Right.
I have like I've got lots of employees when if anyone ever brings me something quoting Wikipedia, I'm like, one more time you're fired. That's not the source, right? And you might look there to
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
but if you bring me something from the Encyclopedia Britannica, I'm far more likely to believe that.
yeah. Right.
And similarly, like books like Barry Weiss and Matt Taibbi, like left
Yeah,
where they were because they were getting squelched. The only thing I would say, and is a quick thought, is the main problem I'm having with Substack is there are lots and lots of really good writers who I like a lot, and but if everyone wants $80 a year, right? Well, that's insane because I could get the Wall Street Journal for $1 a day, and
mhm,
so the model that's going to work is eventually micropayments. So that's
yeah,
part of what we've got a micropayment solution on a tech company I work with, but like that's perfect. Like if you like something someone said, you can click and they get 5 cents, right? You can
yeah.
only
I
do
like
that
that.
on a blockchain enabled system, which whole other discussion. But I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that's
yeah.
where it will evolve to,
No,
right?
that is exactly the right. I've read about this before, and I agree 100%. That
And
is the
that'll
way
help
to
a
do
lot
it.
of people get a lot of traction because yeah, I like that. I think you're a really smart writer, but I mean I've already committed to 8 writers, and oh my God, I add that
Yeah,
up.
you can't.
Six
There's
hundred and
only so
forty
many you
bucks
can
a year. Are
afford.
you kidding?
Yeah. There is some value. I know I tried with my other blog doing like a $10 a year, 99 cents a month or something, but that didn't really work. So there is some value to asking for a certain amount of money. In other words, you need fewer followers or fewer payers
Yep.
to get the same amount of money. But I'll be honest with you, with mine, I don't. The money's just a little plus. It's a
Oh,
little great.
I was delighted the first time someone
Yeah,
subscribed. I was like, wow, that's
yeah,
really great. I've been at this for 2 years, three
yeah,
years, mainly in support of my
yeah,
my need to rant.
yeah.
And
Same
if
here.
anyone
Same
liked it,
here.
great, wonderful. They don't,
Yeah. And I think the beauty of the whole Substack and all that is, we all have biases. You have a bias, I have a bias, but we're not afraid to talk about it,
Yeah.
and that's the beauty of it. People can tune in, tune out, like with Greenwald. I don't agree with him on the whole Gaza thing and all that. I think he's completely off base, but I love what he's saying on free speech.
Yep.
He's 100% correct, and he makes his case very vividly and strongly. He's also, he's a lefty, but he's gone after the people who propagated the Russian hoax. He's really, really down on them. Um, he's got a lot of the same enemies we've got, even though we're against him on the whole Gaza
That's
thing.
that's the whole point that I found. I think we can end on this because I think we've got to
Yeah,
go. The
I know.
What I love about him, and also I had Harvey Silverglade on the show. And Harvey's one of my favorite writers. He's a lawyer, free speech absolutist. Left as left can come, right? He was a Vietnam era
Right.
lefty. And when it comes to the issues that matter about your ability to express yourself in the
Yeah.
public square without censorship, there is no daylight between us.
Yeah.
Because he rightly sees
Right.
that you start censoring someone. I've been thrown off I was thrown off LinkedIn, the professional, which I share that honor with only one other person I know, it was Craig Wright, Satoshi
It is
Nakamoto.
pretty hard to do, I must say.
Really hard to do. But you know what I did? I criticized a bunch of Jew haters describing themselves as a Palestinian newspaper who wrote this crap straight out of the Protocols of Zion
Yeah,
that
yeah.
all Jews are blood-sucking genocidal maniacs. That's taught in their yeshivas.
Right.
I
Right.
first flagged that to the LinkedIn moderators who came back instantly like, no, that's fine. So I then criticized it. I was thrown off LinkedIn for bullying the Jew haters. So they can bite me. I don't need this. I don't need the platform, right?
Yeah.
But that insanity encapsulates when you let a kid with a mouse in a cubicle anonymously delete your words.
I know. I
There's no
know.
more free speech.
Well, the free speech argument and some others have brought together far left and far right, and I don't even like those terms really, but
Yeah.
they've brought together the fringes. I'm on the fringe, myself. So I find myself, but you mentioned Bobby Kennedy. I mean, I
How
would not.
crazy is that? They have denied him Secret Service
I know.
protection.
I would not vote for him. Trump's my guy, but I like a lot of what he says, and he makes a
Huge
lot of
amounts of what
good.
he has to say. His criticism
And
of allowing the Chinese to consolidate all the pork
Absolutely.
industry in this country,
Yeah.
brilliant.
And
Destroying
even
farmers' livelihoods, brilliant. When it comes to oil and gas and climate change, he's an idiot. But
and
okay,
look
he's
at
allowed to be an
Elon
idiot.
Musk. Look at Elon Musk. What he's turned out to be, even though I've criticized, I've called him the pale-faced something or other. I forget what I called him. It wasn't kind.
Wasn't
And
kind. He can take
yeah,
it.
yeah, it was in my blog, so you never read it. But it was about Solar City and Tesla and all the grifting and all that. But now you know what? He's got a lot to say that's damn good.
Yeah, let
So
people talk.
we have to work together with people that support us. So I really
Indeed.
appreciate being on your program. Thank you so much. It's so
Tom,
enjoyable.
thank you for taking the time. If
And
all
write me that article. Write me
I
that
will,
article.
if all anyone can take away from this is the fact that yeah, you should do your own research, and
Yep.
research does not mean reading some insane piece. For me, go
Well,
go find some reputable universities. Take a look at what they've got to say.
check the original sources. That's what
Check the
I do.
original sources exactly. And until next time, Tom. Thanks again to my loyal listeners. Remember to turn off the mainstream media who are lying to you and tune into Messy Times.